Good afternoon, members of my declassified Caribbean channel. Thank you so much for joining. And today we're going to be looking at a very interesting topic as usual. Jamaica in crisis. 54% want to leave while UHWI owes billions. And that is the story that we're going to be, or title we're going to be looking at this afternoon. Jamaica is facing growing frustration as a shocking 54% of citizens reportedly consider leaving the country amid the rising cost of living, economic pressure, and declining confidence in the future. At the same time, explosive allegations surrounding billions in unpaid taxes linked to that's the UHWI are fueling public outrage and raising serious questions about accountability, fairness, and governance in Jamaica. Why are so many Jamaicans feeling hopeless about the future? Is the economic burden becoming unbearable for ordinary citizens while powerful institutions avoid responsibility? And what does this mean for Jamaica's long term stability, brain drain, and political future? In this video, we break down the latest migration concerns affecting Jamaica, rising food, housing, and utility costs, public frustration with the economy, the UHWI tax controversy, and its wider implications, how these issues could affect or impact Jamaica's future. Join the discussion and make sure that you like and you share and you subscribe to the channel because we need to grow as fast as possible so that we can have in-depth conversations that you're not hearing in the mainstream media, neither are you hearing it in what they call independent, for whatever that is worth. Now, 54% of Jamaicans now say they want to leave the country. Think about that for a moment. More than half of the population is looking at migration as the only escape from crushing living costs, crumbling infrastructure, failing public services, crime, corruption, injustice, and politicians many no longer trust because they think that they're liars. Yet at the same time, Jamaicans are constantly told that Jamaica is the leader, the quote unquote leader and quote unquote capital of the Caribbean. So, how can a country that claims regional greatness be losing so many of its own people? And this is what many citizens of other countries were asking Jamaicans, and have not been able to answer them. Why are they leaving if Jamaica is the capital of the Caribbean? Now, this is one of the paradoxes of Jamaica. And, of course, Professor Orlando Patterson has written prolifically on that, particularly in his book, The Confounding Island. Jamaica, the confounding island. And for those of you who go and purchase the book and get delve into some of the contradictions that are so prominent in that country called Jamaica. So this afternoon, we are confronting the painful contradiction of at the heart of modern Jamaica, a nation rich in talent, culture, and global influence, yet suffering one of the worst brain drains in the region. I think that we are number one, if not number two, in the world with regard to brain drain. How do we begin to argue with other Caribbean territories and the world at large when we are still a poor country? We have not improved on our economic lot since 1962. Jamaica has produced world famous athletes, musicians, intellectuals, nurses, teachers, and workers who help build other countries across the globe. But today, more than half of Jamaicans are reportedly considering leaving the island itself. That should alarm every single person in this country. Because when people no longer believe their future is at home, you are not just facing an economic crisis, you are facing a national crisis. Jamaica is currently going through a national crisis with the JLP, the Jamaican Labour Party, at the helm. People are tired of working and still struggling to survive, tired of bad roads, overwhelmed hospitals, rising food prices, corruption scandals, crime, and a political culture where ordinary citizens feel ignored while the powerful continue to prosper. Jamaica keeps exporting its brightest minds while importing more debt, more dependency, and more frustration. Let's share a little clipping of a video that was done by Lekem Samaj. Hope I can find it for the video here. It might not be found at the moment. Hopefully it will. Can I find it? Maybe I'm not going to be able to find, ladies and gentlemen. So I might have to move on if it cannot be found. But he extrapolated a little on the growing frustrations that Jamaicans are currently facing at home. It seems like it cannot be found, so I might have to just, forego that. But he was articulating, and he articulated very well the socioeconomic conditions right there, and he encapsulated the frustration that many Jamaicans are currently facing because of the poor economic conditions. We don't even have to talk about the roads, and the other day, Davis, the George Davis of Nationwide, he was speaking, and he's also GLP, right? And he was speaking, he was forced to speak, he was coerced to speak about the what you call now the poor conditions of our roads. And in his words, he says that they cannot be worse. They cannot be worse than they are at the current moment. Okay, so we need to move away from this partisan conversation into a more balanced and objective conversation in terms of where are we heading as a nation, and stop allowing some 21-year-old young man who doesn't have any brain, his brain has not yet been developed, to suggest that you are the capital or you have the best food. Who cares about that if the infrastructure is crumbling, the economic, the social, the medical infrastructure there is collapsing. Nobody cares about, Jamaica being the capital of the world. And oftentimes people associate Jamaica with the wrong things. We are notorious. I don't think that we are popular as people are suggesting. I think that we are notorious, okay, as ganja smokers, as people just liming, not productive, irie, everything is irie, okay? We're not known to be serious intellectual people. There are serious intellectual Jamaicans. However, that is not what we choose to promote to the world. Okay? And people who go there, they see a nation in crisis. The roads, when you look at even communities where you have these big, wonderful mansions, and you cannot. And my God, the developers, where is Andrew Holness and or members of Parliament? They should ensure that no housing scheme, particularly with modern houses, are developed unless you have proper infrastructure and the amenities are there, water, proper roads, and they should be paved. And nobody should be buying those homes for millions of dollars. Okay, millions of dollars, whether Jamaican dollars or American dollars, if proper roads are not maintained, and they should be paved roads. But the corruption is so deep there that what we're seeing now, people just do whatever they want to do. People just do whatever they want to do without any consequence at all. And you sometimes wonder if our people don't deserve it because the things that they listen to, the gossips and the drama, and they're not listening to things that will help them to understand systems of power. So when you're hearing about the UHWI and its corruption charges, it is deliberate. That is how powerful guys, that is how the economy operates in Jamaica. Powerful guys get away with things because they belong to certain organizations. And that is why you must study systems of power. You don't want to hear that. All you want to hear is Beanie Man and Chabarangs and the foolishness that you hear, and to your own detriment, because you can't have your cake and eat it at the same time. Now, there was an article here written, I'm trying to get it out of my face because it's sort of, the glare from the article. It's coming from the Gleaner, and Mark Wignall, and the article is titled University Hospital and the Taxes, right? This is what Mark Williams is writing. And he's also GLP, right? So he supports the Jamaica Labour Party. The University Hospital of the West Indies, that's the UHWI, has admitted, so he's suggesting here, that it owes some $18 billion in taxes. Yet, yes, that's right, he's suggesting here. Jamaican $18 billion in taxes to government. with penalties and late fees. The amount is to some, well, is close to, he's suggesting here, 40 billion Jamaican dollars. That is a lot of money. And we are all aware that the PAC is investigating, so we await the findings. That's all we do, right? Corruption upon corruption, and then we investigate, 9-day wonder, and then it moves on. The next corruption, and people are kept entertained while there is no justice, right? Justice is elusive. A nest of questions are stirred up. For how long has the UHWI not been meeting its tax obligations to the government of Jamaica? That's a very good question. For how long? And who allowed this 18 billion amount to accrue? The powers that be. We know that. Who allowed the 18 billion amount to accrue? Why was this allowed? Corruption, and I'm sure that Mark Whitner knows that, but he's asking these questions, which are very good questions to ask, to raise in his article. Why did the appropriate officials at the UHWI not advise of the inability to pay and request a payment plan? Because they don't have to, do they? Why did the appropriate officials at the UHWI allow interest and late penalties to cause the total amount owed to balloon to $40 billion? Yeah. What is the Minister of Health and Wellness's role in this mess? Did the tax collector or agency responsible for collecting the tax institute any collection proceedings against the UHWI? And if they did, when did they do so? And he's asking all of these questions, right? And he knows, as a journalist, as a veteran journalist in Jamaica, that this is the way how things operate. And every time we hear a new corruption charge, every time that is advanced in the papers because it sells. Corruption and all of these things sells. That is what gets views, and the newspapers are able to be read, right, and earn people advertising money and all of that nonsense. Okay, so understand that these things sell. That's why they do it, right? It's a connected system because they know they can earn money from corruption and crime and all of these things. Jamaica is a poor country, he's suggesting here, even if at times we use fancy terminologies like we're the capital of the Caribbean, which doesn't make any sense. And we need to get our act together. We're not any capital of anything because we're a poor, country with loads of problems. Okay, and it seems like we are not interested in solving our problems. Every dollar of revenue owed to the government counts. If the UHWI had paid all taxes owed, how many schools could have been built or upgraded? I'm reading the thing here from Mark Wheeler, and you really want even the gleaner. Doesn't it earn a lot of profit? Why can't it upgrade its paper? The words that you have here, that's fine. Just common word. Can't you use a different computer? A Mac computer, a publishing, it's not at the level of the New York Times, is it? How many families could have been helped, and how many roads could have been repaired? And boy, don't we need the roads to be repaired? Don't we need the roads to be repaired? What about a Spark program? All of a sudden, and we're now hearing that only, was it 2% of the money that was donated to Hurricane Melissa has been spent? So it means, therefore, that people have largely not been helped. And next month is the beginning of another hurricane season. My understanding is that in some part of rural Jamaica, we still have people in shelters. Am I correct? So people have not received houses. Their roofs have not been repaired. Yet still Andrew Holness is running around the world and in Jamaica behaving as if he is a celebrity. Because you have made him, and I've said it many, many times, you have made our politicians into celebrities. And you think that they're special. You think that they are royal. And you support them. You support them. And that is why you deserve what you are getting, because you are likewise corrupt. And things will not be better in Jamaica because people like corruption and corruption pays. So all of these journalists and the papers highlighting these corrupt activities and these corrupt charges are only doing that because it pays. And they look as if, they're intellectuals and they can write on something. Because apart from that, what is there to write about? Apart from the corruption and the crime, and what is there in Jamaica to write about? Okay, so this is the situation we're facing, and we've got to become more vigilant as citizens. But many of us are not vigilant, neither do we want to become vigilant. When is the next party? And we know when it is. Who is the best singer out there and who has the top album? All of that we know. Who is the reggae boy or the reggae girls? We know all of that, but we don't know what is happening economically, socially, medically in the country. Now, here is the contradiction nobody wants to seriously discuss. Jamaica is often presented as the powerhouse of the Caribbean, culturally dominant, globally recognized, influential beyond its size. But if Jamaica is truly doing so well, why do so many Jamaicans want to escape it? If there are lots of vibes down there, right? Why are so many educated young people planning their exit instead of planning their future here? This is not just about migration. This is about confidence collapsing inside the country itself. Because when nurses leave, doctors leave, teachers leave, engineers leave, and young professionals leave, the country enters a dangerous cycle where decline feeds more decline. And while ordinary Jamaicans battle the brutal cost of living, the country is now being rocked by controversy surrounding billions in alleged unpaid taxes connected to UHWI. So citizens are asking a simple question: are the burdens of Jamaica falling hardest on the poor and the middle class, while powerful institutions and elites operate under different rules? And that is what is happening. That is why you have to understand system of power, which many of you don't want to understand. Jamaica is not lacking talent. Jamaica is not lacking intelligence. Jamaica is not lacking potential. What many Jamaicans increasingly believe is that the country is lacking leadership, accountability, long-term planning, and an economic model that actually improves the lives of ordinary Jamaicans. There is a growing feeling across the island that Jamaica survives on image, branding. That's what you saw UHWI doing, and international reputation, while too many citizens quietly suffer behind the scenes. We can't nyam reputation. Well, reputation, yes, we can eat in terms of we are productive, but we can nyam good image in terms of, ISO speed and food and ackee and saltfish. Many people can't even buy saltfish. They can't afford it, or so-called national dish. What an embarrassment on the government and the people of Jamaica. The music is global. The athletes are global. The culture is global. But many Jamaicans themselves are asking, when will the quality of life become world-class too? That is a question. It's not just having Sean Pauls and the Beanie Mans and the Shabarats being global. When is the quality of life in Jamaica going to be world-class, exemplary, in the Caribbean and the world at large? That is a question that needs to be answered. And I don't think it will ever be answered, because it's going to unravel Jamaica. And we're going to have a revolution if people come to an awareness of the truth that they are being entertained while the politicians and the powers that be in that country continue to pillage and to plunder, while citizens die of starvation, die of a lack of being able to accomplish their ambition and their dreams. Hope you understand that, Jamaica. is in deep crisis. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Like the video so the video can be shared with as many people on the platform. So please share the video, like it, and leave a comment so that we can build conversations that many people do not want to be engaged in or become a part of. It's just a wasteland. That is what we are at the moment.